Nobody sat next to Danny Reeves in the cafeteria. 3 empty seats on his left. 4 on his right. The closest alien student was 2 tables away, and even that felt too close for most of them. He chewed his food slowly and pretended not to hear the whispers. That's the human. A Telmori with shimmering crystal skin said to her friend. Can you believe they let one in? Baseline species, her companion replied. No natural abilities. No tech sense. Nothing. Danny kept eating. He had heard worse back home in Montana when he told people he was applying to the Galactic Defense Institute. His own neighbors had laughed. A human at the most elite military academy in known space? Impossible. But his grandfather had not laughed. The old man had simply nodded and handed Danny his hunting bow. Every tool is deadly in the right hands, he had said. Remember that when they try to make you feel small. Danny remembered it every single day. The cafeteria was massive, built to hold 1,000 students from dozens of species. Borvathi cadets with their 6 legs and rock-like bodies clustered near the windows. Sylphine instructors with 4 arms each monitored the room. Small winged Fethri flew between tables, their high voices filling the air, and one human sat alone, finishing his meal that a shadow fell across his table. Danny looked up to find a Fethri hovering at eye level. Her wings were pale blue, and her large eyes studied him with open curiosity. You are Danny Reeves, she said. The human. That's me. I am Nyla. I study human history. She landed on the table, folding her wings. You built the pyramids. You crossed oceans in wooden ships. You walked on your own moon using math and metal. Danny blinked. We did. Then why does everyone say your species is primitive? Before Danny could answer, an announcement echoed through the cafeteria. All cadets were to report to Applied Weapons Engineering immediately. The classroom was built like an amphitheater, with rising seats surrounding a central platform. Danny found a spot near the back. Nyla followed and perched on the seat beside him. On the platform stood Instructor Relvos, a tall Sylphine with gray-green skin and 4 arms that never stopped moving. His voice carried easily through the room. This semester's final examination has been scheduled, he said. You will be transported to an uncharted planet. You will have 48 hours. Using only raw materials found on that world, you will construct a functional weapon. Excited murmurs spread through the cadets. A Borvathi named Greth, the top-ranked student in the academy, cracked his massive knuckles. Finally, he rumbled. A real test. Relvos continued. You will be graded on creativity, functionality, and effectiveness. The weapon must be capable of damaging a standard combat target. Danny's mind was already working. He pulled out a worn notebook and began sketching. Partner assignments, Relvos announced. He read through the list until he reached a name that made the room go quiet. Kira Vaz, partnered with Danny Reeves. A Telmori in the front row stood up so fast her crystalline skin flickered with light. Instructor, there must be a mistake. There is no mistake. But he is human. He cannot interface with materials. He cannot shape metal with his thoughts. He will drag down my score. Relvos showed no emotion. The assignment stands. Kira turned and looked up at Danny. Her eyes burned with frustration. He met her gaze calmly and said nothing. After class, Danny was packing his notebook when Relvos appeared beside him. The instructor's 4 arms were folded, and his expression was unreadable. Cadet Reeves. A word. Yes, sir. Relvos leaned closer. I have taught at this academy for 30 years. In that time, 47 humans have attempted the weapons examination. All 47 failed. Danny waited. Your species lacks the biological tools that other cadets possess. The Telmori can bond with metal. The Borvathi secrete construction cement. The Sylphine have 4 hands for complex assembly. He paused. You have none of these advantages. I understand, sir. Then you understand why I am advising you to withdraw. Take a lesser examination. Pass with dignity. Do not embarrass yourself on that planet. Danny thought of his grandfather. He thought of pyramids and wooden ships and a flag planted on the moon. With respect, sir, he said quietly. I will take the examination. Relvos studied him for a long moment. Something flickered in his eyes. It might have been pity. It might have been something else. Very well, the instructor said. But when you fail, remember that I gave you a way out. He walked away, his 4 arms swinging in perfect rhythm. Danny looked down at his notebook. The sketch was simple. 2 curved pieces of wood connected by a string. An arrow with a stone tip points 70,000 years of human history had led to this moment. He closed the notebook and smiled. Nobody was going to make him feel small. The transport ship broke through the clouds, and Danny got his first look at Training Site 7 Gamma. Green forests stretched to the horizon. Rivers cut silver paths through the trees. Mountains rose in the distance, their peaks hidden in mist. It looked almost like Earth. 200 cadets stood in the cargo bay, waiting for the doors to open. Each carried a basic survival pack. No technology, no weapons, just raw materials and 48 hours. Kira Voss stood as far from Danny as possible. Her crystalline skin pulsed with soft light, a sign of her frustration. She had not spoken to him since the partner assignments. The doors opened. Warm air rushed in, carrying the smell of pine and wet earth. "Begin," Relvos announced over the speakers. The cadets scattered into the forest like seeds in the wind. Greth led a group of Borvathi toward a rocky outcrop. Danny watched him go. The massive alien was already talking about sonic frequencies and resonant crystals. His weapon would be powerful, but Danny was not worried about Greth that he walked into the forest alone. Kira followed at a distance, making no effort to help. "Where are you going?" she finally asked. "The best materials are near the rocks. Everyone knows that." Danny did not answer. He was looking at the trees. The forest was full of different species. Thin trees with flexible trunks. Thick trees with hardwood. Vines that stretched between branches like natural rope. He tested each one, bending branches, checking grain patterns, feeling the weight. Kira watched in confusion. "What are you doing? There is nothing useful here. No metal. No crystals. Nothing." "There is everything useful here," Danny said quietly. He found what he was looking for an hour later. A tree with a trunk that curved naturally, its wood dense but flexible. He pulled out a small knife from his survival pack and began cutting. "You are insane," Kira said. "You cannot build a weapon from wood." Danny kept working. Night fell. The other cadets had gathered in groups, their improvised forges glowing orange in the darkness. Greth's team had built something that hummed with power. The Telmori cadets were bonding with metal fragments they had found near a crashed satellite. Danny sat alone by a small fire, carving. The bow was taking shape. He had split the curved trunk and was slowly shaping each limb. The wood grain was perfect, strong enough to hold tension, flexible enough to bend without breaking. Footsteps approached. Danny looked up to find Nyla landing on a nearby rock. "The others are laughing at you," she said. "I know. They say you are building a children's toy." Danny held up the half-finished bow. "Does this look like a toy to you?" Nyla tilted her head, studying the curved wood. "I do not know what it is. It is a bow. Humans have used them for 70,000 years. Before we had guns. Before we had metal. Before we had anything except stone and wood and the will to survive." He ran his fingers along the smooth grain. No power source needed. No charging time. No heat signature. Just stored energy waiting to be released. And the ammunition. Danny pointed to a pile of straight branches he had collected. "Arrows. Stone tips. They fly faster than you can blink." Nyla was quiet for a moment. Then she smiled. "You are not building a children's toy. No, I am building the weapon that conquered Earth." More footsteps. Kira appeared at the edge of the firelight. She had been watching from the shadows. "How do you know the string will hold?" she asked. Danny looked at her. It was the first real question she had asked him. "I do not know for certain, but I have done this before. I know how much tension the wood can take. I know what kind of fiber makes the strongest string." "Show me." He handed her a strip of plant fiber he had been braiding. "Pull it. Feel the strength." She pulled. Her crystalline fingers glowed as she tested the material. "It is stronger than I expected." "Nature builds strong things," Danny said. "We just have to know where to look." Kira sat down across the fire from him. "Teach me. Show me how you see these things." Danny smiled and handed her a branch. "We start with the arrows. Find the straightest grain. Feel for any weakness." They worked through the night. By morning, Danny had a finished bow, 20 arrows with stone tips, and a partner who no longer thought he was insane. The sun rose over the forest. Danny stood and tested the string one final time. It sang with tension. Something glinted in the sky above the trees. Danny froze. "What is that?" Kira asked. Danny watched the metallic shape drift between the clouds. It moved in slow patterns, scanning the ground below. "That is not one of ours," he said quietly. "The drone had found them." Danny grabbed Kira's arm and pulled her into the shadows beneath a thick tree. Above them, the drone drifted silently through the morning sky. It was sleek and black, shaped like a flattened teardrop. No academy markings, no identification codes, just smooth metal and sensors that swept the forest below. Vorith Collective, Danny whispered. Kira's crystalline skin went pale. Are you certain? I saw the design in our briefings. Reconnaissance unit. It scans for life signs and sends coordinates back to the main fleet. Coordinates for what? Danny did not answer. He did not need to. Everyone knew what the Vorith did. They found isolated groups and sold their locations to slave traders. 200 unarmed cadets in the middle of nowhere would be worth a fortune. We need to warn the others, Kira said. They ran. The forest blurred past as they sprinted toward the main camp. Other cadets were already gathering when they arrived. Word had spread fast. Relvos stood at the center of the crowd, his 4 arms crossed, his face grim. The drone is Vorith, he announced. It has been circling for approximately 2 hours. Based on its scanning pattern, it will complete its sweep within 6 hours. Then it will transmit. A Borvathi cadet raised a massive fist. Then we destroy it. My sonic cannon is ready. Your cannon requires a stationary target, Relvos replied. The drone moves in random patterns. By the time you lock on, it will have shifted position. What about the Telmori weapons? Someone shouted. A Telmori cadet stepped forward. Our plasma cells need 30 seconds to charge. The drone's sensors will detect the heat buildup and evade before we can fire. Panic rippled through the crowd. Danny could see it in their eyes. These were the best cadets in the galaxy, armed with the most advanced improvised weapons ever built, and none of them could touch a target 80 meters in the sky. There must be something, Greth growled. Some way to reach it. The drone's algorithms can predict any weapon in the galactic database, Relvos said. It knows how plasma moves. It knows sonic wave patterns. It calculates trajectories before we even fire. Then we are dead. A Fethri wailed. Silence fell over the camp. 200 cadets, helpless. Danny felt the weight of the bow on his shoulder. He thought about what Relvos had said. The drone predicted weapons in the galactic database. It knew plasma and sonic waves and electromagnetic pulses, but it did not know wood and string. I can hit it, Danny said. Every head turned toward him. The human. The primitive. The one they had laughed at for carving sticks. Greth snorted. You? With that toy? It is not a toy. Danny stepped forward into the center of the crowd. He held up his bow. This has no heat signature. No charging time. No electronic components. The drone cannot predict it because it is not in any database. Relvos studied him with narrowed eyes. Explain. The arrow is wood and stone. It flies faster than a thrown rock, but slower than plasma. The drone's sensors are designed to track energy weapons. They will not register a wooden projectile until it is already in flight. Even if that is true, a Telmori cadet argued, you cannot hit a moving target at 80 meters with a primitive bow. I have been shooting since I was 6 years old, Danny said calmly. I can hit a target the size of my hand at 100 meters. The crowd murmured. Doubt and hope mixed together. Nyla flew down and landed on Danny's shoulder. He is telling the truth. I have studied human archery. Their ancestors brought down flying birds with these weapons. They hunted animals 10 times their size. One shot, Kira added. Give him one shot. What do we have to lose? Relvos was silent for a long moment. His 4 arms slowly uncrossed. The drone pauses when it processes data bursts. A fraction of a second. If you can time your shot, I can time it, Danny said. But I need to know exactly when it pauses. Nyla spread her wings. Fethri eyes can track micro-movements. I will watch the drone and tell you when. Danny looked around at the crowd. 200 faces stared back at him. Aliens who had called him primitive. Aliens who had laughed at his wooden bow. Now they were silent. Greth stepped forward. My cannon can draw its attention. It will focus jamming on me while you position. I can get you to higher ground, Kira offered. There is a ridge to the north with clear sight lines. One by one, cadets offered help. A plan took shape. Distraction. Positioning. Timing. Everything depended on one arrow and one human. Danny nodded slowly. Let us bring it down. The ridge overlooked the entire valley. Danny knelt at the edge, bow in hand, watching the drone circle above the forest. Kira crouched beside him, her crystalline skin dimmed to avoid reflecting light. Nyla hovered in the air nearby, her large eyes tracking the drone's every movement. It completes one full circle every 4 minutes, she reported. During each cycle, it pauses twice to process data. The pauses last exactly 0.3 seconds. Which direction does it face during the pause? Danny asked. North, toward the mountains. Danny calculated the angles in his head. If he positioned himself correctly, the drone would be facing away from him when it paused. It would not see the arrow until too late. I need to move 50 meters east, he said. Kira helped him scramble across the rocky ridge. His boots slipped on loose stones, but her grip was strong. They reached the new position just as Greth's voice crackled through the emergency communicator Relvos had provided. Ready when you are, human. Danny drew a single arrow from his quiver. He had selected it carefully. The straightest shaft. The sharpest stone tip. Perfect balance. This arrow would not wobble in flight. He fitted it to the string and took a breath. Now Greth. Below in the valley, a bright pulse of sound erupted from Greth's cannon. The sonic wave was not aimed at the drone. It was aimed at the ground, creating a massive disturbance that lit up every sensor the drone had. The black machine immediately shifted its attention. Its jamming systems locked onto the Borvathi position. Its cameras zoomed in on the source of the threat, and it forgot about the ridge. It is coming around, Nyla called. 15 seconds to the pause. Danny raised the bow. His arms were steady. His breathing was slow. He had made this shot 1,000 times in the forests of Montana. Deer at 100 meters. Birds in flight. Targets his grandfather had set up in the meadow behind their house. This was no different. Just another target. 10 seconds. The drone drifted closer. 80 meters. 75. Danny could see its sensor arrays glowing faintly in the morning light. 5 seconds. He drew the string back. The bow creaked softly. Stored energy hummed through the wood, waiting to be released. 3, 2, 1. Now. The drone paused. Danny released. The arrow flew. There was no sound. No flash of light. No warning. Just a wooden shaft cutting through the air faster than the eye could follow. The drone's sensors registered nothing. Its algorithms searched for heat signatures, electromagnetic pulses, sonic waves. They found nothing because there was nothing to find. The arrow was invisible to every system the Vorath had designed. The stone tip struck the drone's central processor. For a moment, the machine hung in the air, perfectly still. Then sparks erupted from the wound. Smoke poured from its casing. Its lights flickered once, twice, and went dark. The drone fell. It crashed through tree branches and slammed into the forest floor with a sound like thunder. Silence. Then Nyla screamed. It was not a scream of fear. It was pure joy. He did it, she shouted, flying loops in the air. He did it. Cheers erupted from the valley below. 200 voices joined together in celebration. Cadets who had never spoken to Danny were chanting his name. Kira grabbed his arm. Her crystal skin was blazing with light. That was impossible, she breathed. That was completely impossible. Danny lowered his bow. His hands were shaking now. The calm had broken, and he could feel his heart pounding in his chest. Not impossible, he said quietly. Just old. They climbed down from the ridge together. By the time they reached the crash site, a crowd had already gathered. The drone lay in a crater of broken branches, smoke still rising from its shattered hull. Danny's arrow jutted from its center like a flag of victory. Relvos pushed through the crowd. He stared at the drone for a long moment, then at Danny, then back at the drone. His forearms hung loose at his sides. 70,000 years, the instructor said softly. Sir, your species has been perfecting that weapon for 70,000 years. Relvos shook his head slowly. We have been so busy looking forward that we forgot to look back. He reached out and placed one of his 4 hands on Danny's shoulder. Well done, Cadet Reeves. Well done. The recovery ships would arrive soon. The cadets were safe. And somewhere in the wreckage of a Vorath drone, a simple wooden arrow had changed everything. The recovery ship descended through the clouds 2 hours after the drone fell. Danny stood at the edge of the clearing and watched it land. Its engines kicking up dust and leaves. The cadets had spent those 2 hours gathered around the wreckage. Some examined the drone's technology. Others simply stared at the wooden arrow that had brought it down. Danny had not moved from his spot. His bow hung across his back, and his quiver was nearly empty. He had used 19 arrows for practice. One for the shot that mattered. Military officers poured out of the recovery ship before it had fully landed. They wore the dark uniforms of the Galactic Defense Command, and their faces were hard with urgency. The tall Sylphine officer approached Relvos. "Report. Vorith reconnaissance drone," Relvos replied. It was scanning the training site. If it had completed its transmission, 200 cadets would have been marked for capture. How was it destroyed? Our sensors detected no energy weapons discharge. Relvos turned and pointed at Danny. The human did it. The officer blinked. Then he walked toward Danny with slow, deliberate steps. His forearms were clasped behind his back, and his eyes never left Danny's face. "You destroyed a Vorith drone." "Yes, sir." "With what weapon?" Danny unslung his bow and held it out. "This, sir." The officer stared at it. "Wood and string. Nothing else." He reached out and touched the curved limb, feeling the grain beneath his fingers. "I do not understand," he said finally. "It is called a bow," Danny explained. "Humans have used them for 70,000 years. The arrow has no heat signature, no electromagnetic field, no predictable trajectory. The drone's sensors were not designed to detect it." The officer was silent for a long moment. Then he turned to Relvos. "Bring everything. The drone, the arrow, all recordings. Command needs to see this." The return trip to the academy took 6 hours. Danny spent most of it alone in a corner of the transport ship, watching the stars drift past the window. Kira found him there. She sat down without asking permission. "You saved 200 lives," she said. "I hit a target. That is all." "No." She shook her head. "That is not all. I spent my whole life believing that technology was the answer to everything. Better sensors, faster processors, stronger materials." She paused. "You taught me that sometimes the answer is simpler than we think." Danny looked at her. "I did not teach you anything. I just built a bow. And that bow taught me more than 4 years at this academy." They sat in silence as the ship carried them home. The debrief lasted 3 days. Officers questioned Danny about every detail of the shot. Engineers disassembled the drone and studied the arrow's entry point. Analysts ran simulations trying to understand how a wooden projectile had evaded systems designed to track plasma bolts. The answer was simple. The drone had been looking for the future. Danny had attacked with the past, and on the 4th day, Danny was summoned to Relvos' office. The instructor sat behind his desk, all 4 hands folded on the surface. "The examination results have been finalized," Relvos said. "You received a perfect score." Danny nodded. "Thank you, sir. You are the first human to achieve that mark. In fact, you are the first cadet of any species to receive full points in all categories." Relvos paused. "Creativity, functionality, effectiveness. You exceeded every standard." "I just built what I knew how to build." Relvos leaned back in his chair. "I told you to withdraw. I said no human had ever passed this examination. I was wrong to say that. You were honest, sir, based on the evidence you had." The evidence was incomplete. Relvos' voice was heavy. "I lost my entire squad during the drone wars. A reconnaissance unit found us, just like this one found you. We had plasma rifles and sonic grenades and shielded armor. None of it mattered. The drones predicted every move we made." He looked at Danny with something like wonder in his eyes. "If we had possessed a weapon they could not predict, my squad might still be alive." Danny did not know what to say. He stood in silence while Relvos composed himself. "There is someone who wishes to meet you," the instructor finally said. "Admiral Tessera of the 3rd Fleet. She arrived this morning specifically to speak with you." "An admiral? She has questions." Relvos stood and moved toward the door. "And I believe she has a proposal." Danny followed him out of the office and into the corridor beyond. He did not know what waited for him, but he knew that his bow had opened a door that could never be closed. 6 months had changed everything. Danny stood at the front of a classroom filled with 50 instructors from 12 different species. Behind him, a large screen displayed images of weapons spanning human history. Clubs, spears, slings, bows, crossbows, trebuchets, tools of survival, tools of war, tools that had shaped a species. "Welcome to Asymmetric Solutions," Danny said. "My name is Specialist Instructor Reeves. I am here to teach you how humans think." He was the youngest instructor in Academy history. The promotion had come directly from Admiral Tessera, who had spent 4 hours questioning him about the drone shot. At the end of their conversation, she had offered him a choice: return to the regular cadet program or help build something new? Danny had chosen to build. Your species developed technology faster than mine, he continued. You created plasma weapons while we were still throwing rocks. You built starships while we were still riding horses. He paused. But you forgot something along the way. A Borvathi instructor raised a massive hand. What did we forget? Danny smiled and picked up a chair leg that had been resting against the wall. Watch. He walked to a training dummy at the side of the room. The dummy was protected by a personal shield generator, the same kind used by elite soldiers across the galaxy. Energy weapons could not penetrate it. Sonic waves bounced off harmlessly. Danny swung the chair leg at the shield. It bounced back with a flash of light. The shield stops kinetic energy from projectiles, he explained. But it has a flaw. He swung again, this time at the ceiling tile directly above the dummy. The tile cracked and fell, crashing through the shield from above and striking the dummy's head. Gravity, Danny said. The shield was designed to stop attacks. It was not designed to stop falling objects. The instructors murmured among themselves. Some were writing notes. Others simply stared. This is asymmetric thinking, Danny continued. When your enemy expects plasma, you throw a rock. When they expect sound, you use silence. When they expect technology, you use physics. The door at the back of the room opened. Greth walked in, his 6 legs moving in perfect coordination. He nodded at Danny and took a position beside the display screen. This is my teaching assistant, Danny said. Many of you know him as the top-ranked cadet of his year. He builds the most advanced weapons in the academy. Greth's rocky face shifted into something like a smile. And I was humbled by a stick and string. That is why I am here. The class laughed. It was a good sound. They trained for 3 hours. Danny showed them how to use leverage, momentum, and simple materials to bypass advanced defenses. Greth demonstrated how to combine primitive techniques with modern technology. After the session ended, Danny found Kira waiting outside the classroom. She had changed in the past 6 months too. Her crystalline skin glowed with a new confidence, and she carried a weapon of her own design at her hip. The new cadets have arrived, she said. 3 of them are human. Danny nodded. He had heard the news that morning. The first wave of an expanded exchange program. Humans were no longer rare visitors at the academy. They were becoming part of the family. They asked to meet you, Kira added. They seemed nervous. I remember being nervous. They walked together through the corridors. The academy felt different now. Danny passed cadets who nodded in respect, instructors who stopped to shake his hand. A portrait on the wall showed his face beside the recovered Vorith drone. The 3 human cadets were waiting in the main hall. 2 young men and a young woman, all looking slightly overwhelmed by the alien architecture around them. Danny approached them with a smile. Welcome to the Galactic Defense Institute, he said. I am Danny Reeves. One of the cadets, a nervous young man with red hair, spoke up. Is it true? Did you really take down a drone with a bow and arrow? I did. That seems impossible. Danny thought of his grandfather. He thought of pyramids and wooden ships. He thought of a flag on the moon and an arrow in a drone. It was not impossible, he said gently. It was 70,000 years of practice. Every human carries that history inside them. Our ancestors figured out how to survive when everything was trying to kill them. That knowledge is in your blood, in your bones, in the way your hands grip a tool. He looked at each of them in turn. They will call you primitive. They will say you lack abilities. They will doubt everything you do. He paused. Prove them wrong. Later that evening, Danny visited the Hall of Honor. His original bow hung on the wall, displayed in a case of crystal glass. The arrow was there too, still stained with the drone's hydraulic fluid that a plaque beneath them read. The weapon that proved evolution is not always forward. Danny stood there for a long time, remembering where he had started. A lonely cadet in a cafeteria. A boy with a worn notebook and a dream. Now he was a teacher. A pioneer. A bridge between past and future. And somewhere in the galaxy, more humans were looking at the stars and wondering if they belonged out there. They did. They always had.